Hello, welcome to the Self-Learning Podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Let us start discussion on Chapter 4, Introducing Western Sociology. Sociology is sometimes called the child of the age of revolution. This is because it was born in 19th century Western Europe after revolutionary changes in the preceding 3 centuries that decisively changed the way people lived. Three revolutions paved the way for the emergence of sociology: the Enlightenment or the Scientific Revolution, the French Revolution, and the Industrial Revolution. These processes completely transformed not only European society but also the rest of the world as it came into contact with Europe. In this chapter, the key ideas of three sociological thinkers, Karl Marx, Emil Durkheim, and Max Weber, will be discussed as part of the classical tradition of society. They laid the foundation of the subject. Their ideas and insights have remained relevant even in the contemporary world. Of course, these ideas have also been subjected to criticism and have undergone major modifications. But since ideas about society are themselves influenced by social conditions, we begin with a few words about the context in which sociology emerged. Now let us discuss the context of sociology. The modern era in Europe and the conditions of modernity that we take for granted today were brought about by three major processes. These were the Enlightenment or dawning of the age of reason, the quest for political sovereignty embodied in the French Revolution, and the system of mass manufacture inaugurated by the Industrial Revolution. Since these have been discussed at length in Chapter 1 of Introducing Sociology, here we will only mention some of the intellectual consequences of these momentous changes. The first one is the Enlightenment. During the late 17th and 18th century, Western Europe saw the emergence of radically new ways of thinking about the world, referred to as the Enlightenment. These new philosophies established the human beings at the center of the universe and rational thought as the central feature of the human being. The ability to think rationally and critically transformed the individual human being into both the producer and the user of all knowledge, the knowing subject. On the other hand, only persons who could think and reason could be considered as fully human. Those who could not remained deficient as human beings and were considered as not fully evolved humans, as in the case of natives of primitive societies or savages. Being the handiwork of humans, society was amenable to rational analysis and thus comprehensible to other humans. For reason to become the defining feature of the human world, it was necessary to displace nature, religion, and the divine acts of gods from the central position they had in earlier ways of understanding the world. This means that the Enlightenment was made possible by and in turn helped to develop attitudes of mind that we refer to today as secular, scientific, and humanistic. The next one is the French Revolution. The French Revolution 1789 announced the arrival of the political sovereignty at the level of individuals as well as nation states. The Declaration of Human Rights asserted the equality of all citizens and questioned the legitimacy of privileges inherited by birth. It signaled the emancipation of the individual from the oppressive rule of the religious and feudal institutions that dominated France before the Revolution. The peasants, most of whom were serfs or bonded laborers, tied to the landed estates owned by members of the aristocracy, were freed of their bonds. The numerous taxes paid by the peasants to the feudal lords and to the church were cancelled. As free citizens of the republic, sovereign individuals were invested with rights and were equal before the law and other institutions of the state. The state had to respect the privacy of the autonomous individual, and its laws could not intrude upon the domestic life of the people. A separation was built between the public realm of the state and a private realm of the household. New ideas about what was appropriate to the public and private spheres developed. For example, religion and the family became more private, while education, especially schooling, became more public. Moreover, the nation state itself was also redefined as the sovereign entity with a centralized government. The ideas of the French Revolution, liberty, equality, and fraternity, became the watchwords of the modern state. The next one is Industrial Revolution. The foundations of modern industry were laid by the Industrial Revolution, which began in Britain in the late 18th and early 19th century. This we will discuss in our next session. Now let us wind up the session, and thank you very much for engaging yourself with the Self Learning podcast.